While understanding the story of interwar Europe, we had visited Italy, where we saw the rise of an ideology by the name of fascism. Then we went on to trace the role and rise of a fascist state in Italy under the behest of Mussolini and the various policies he brought out, and we traced the impact those policies had on Italy. Now, at the very end of our discussion of fascism, we realized that fascism as an ideology had managed to spread to many other countries in Europe as well, who had adopted various modified versions of the ideology. That brings us to Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany was a state ruled by Adolf Hitler, and therefore we should be focusing on how Nazism rose up in Germany and what role Hitler played in that rise, and also try to trace the various impacts of Nazism on Germany. Therefore, let us first start by understanding what Nazism really was. Therefore, let us understand what is Nazism, what it was as an ideology, what it included, and how Nazism eventually went on to become the state ideology of Germany. Now we started our discussion on fascism on a very similar note. We understood that fascism had derived itself, or its origin has derived itself, from a symbol of a kind. Similarly, we also start our discussion on Nazism with the symbol of the Nazi movement. This happens to be the swastika. The swastika is a Sanskrit word which stands for something referring to good fortune or of good virtue. Now, not only was the swastika the symbol of the Nazi movement and the Nazi party, it also was a core tenet behind the principles of the Nazi movement. Therefore, let us understand what this particular symbol is. Now, have you seen this symbol before in your life? How about this particular symbol? Does this seem familiar? It must, because this happens to be a holy symbol in India. All around India, in front of temples and at the doorstep of many homes, Hindus have been using this particular symbol as a holy or auspicious symbol. Now you might wonder, how did this symbol travel all the way to Nazi Germany and become their state symbol? Now, was there any way that Hitler had annexed or occupied India? Absolutely not. Well, you see, this symbol is not just based in India. Well, you see, this particular symbol did not originate in India. Its origins have often been termed as prehistoric. The symbol of the swastika brings us to a prehistoric migration, the Aryan migration. Now, do you remember the Aryans? The Aryans were a group of people originating from Central Asia who had migrated towards South Asia and then went on to settle in India and Iran. In India, the Aryans brought about the Vedic age, whereas in Iran they settled down as the Persians. This is the story we know. But did you also know that not only did the Aryans migrate to India and Iran, which is in Asia, the Aryans also migrated to Europe. This is because Central Asia happens to be almost the center of the world, and for definitely is a center of the landmass known as Eurasia, which combines Europe and Asia. Therefore, as a couple of Aryan groups traveled or migrated towards the east, other groups traveled towards the west, towards European countries like Italy, Greece, and particularly Germany. Now, the group that settled down in Northern Europe, particularly in Germany, is often called the Nordic Aryan race or the Nordic Aryan group. Now, it is the Nordic Aryan group to which the Germans trace their lineage from, and the Nazis considered the Nordic Aryan group to be a master race, a race above all, as when the Nordic Aryan group migrated to Germany, it was able to fight off all the local tribes and gain control. Now, the swastika happened to be a symbol of the Aryans who originated in Central Asia and who brought it to the various other places they migrated to. That is why the swastika happens to be a symbol of India and also of Nazi Germany, who were tracing their lineage from the Nordic Aryan group who had traveled to Germany and Northern Europe. Now, can you answer this question? Which Aryan group migrated to Germany? Was it the Indo-Aryans? Was it the Nordic Aryan group? Was it the Iranian Aryan group? Or was it the Alpine Aryans? The correct answer happens to be the Nordic Aryan groups. So we were able to see the origin of the swastika. Now the swastika had been used for centuries by Buddhists and Hindus as a symbol of prosperity. Therefore, the symbol does not particularly belong to the Nazis. However, the swastika has now been permanently associated with the Nazis, and that is because of all the actions that they did, which we will be seeing in the subsequent lessons. Similarly, the word Nazi itself has become a bad adjective of sorts, meaning any person who is too extreme in their means and methods. So what we have realized thus is that just like the fascists in Italy were using the idea of classical Rome and were attempting to return to the idea of classical Rome, similarly the Nazis, using symbols of ancient Aryans and also the idea and concept of a master race, were actually attempting to evoke the ancient glory of the Aryans. And that is an ideological similarity between the two ideologies as well. Now that we understand where the symbolical history of Nazism comes from, let us now understand how did the ideology emerge and evolve. So, the ideology of fascism had spread to many countries who felt that a similar ideology is also required in their country to solve all forms of crises. One such country was Germany. Now in Germany, the Nazis were able to use the same ideological basis as the fascists did from the works of philosophers such as Hegel, Nietzsche and Kant. The added incentive for the Nazis was that all these philosophers were also of German origin, and therefore they can use it with pride, saying that these works belong to their homeland. Now, of course, needless to say, the Nazis also interpreted their works according to their own benefit and to their own intent. Now, that is how the Nazi ideology was formed, taking inspiration from the works of these German philosophers. So let us now understand what Nazism as an ideology really is. Nazism can be best defined as an extreme, right-wing, totalitarian, ultra-nationalist, corporatist and hyper-racialist ideology. Now all these terms mean something to us already. This is because we have understood the meaning of these terms while understanding fascism. However, one word seems a bit strange, and that happens to be hyper-racialist ideology. Now, as I mentioned, Nazism was like an evolved or an modified version of fascism, and therefore hyper-racialism was a unique trait of Nazism. So Nazism propagated the concept of a master race. Hyperracialism as an ideology refers to one person making discriminations between people on the basis of race or ethnicity and also feeling that their own race is superior. That is why the Nazis believed in a master or superior race concept, which were the Aryans, and often this particular kind of superiority of race leads to the unequal treatment and even violence against other races. Politically speaking, Nazism was essentially an anti-democratic movement, which we have understood as the concepts of totalitarian and extreme right-wing politics happens to be against the core tenets of democracy. Now that we've understood that Nazism is an extreme right-wing, totalitarian, ultranationalist, corporatist and racialist ideology, it is important for us to quickly review what these terms mean as well, so that we can associate the meaning of these words with the ideology itself in the subsequent lessons. Starting off with what is an ideology. An ideology happens to be a set of beliefs or ideas of one or a group of people, and these beliefs or ideas eventually lead to the formation of policy based on that ideology. Okay, then moving on, Nazism is an extreme ideology. Now what is extreme? In one word, over the top, aggressive or harsh. In simple terms, an aggressive or an extreme ideology is one which does not mind resorting to violence to get their means. And then moving on, we see that Nazism is also a right-wing ideology. Right-wing refers to the conservative elements in politics. The conservative elements or the conservative topics refer to things like culture, nationalism, order, authority, and is opposed to the left wing concepts such as freedom, liberty, rights, and internationalism. And that is what a right wing ideology is, which happened to be Nazism as well. Now, Nazism was also a totalitarian ideology, and totalitarianism itself was very crucial to the core tenets of Nazism. Now, in a totalitarian ideology or in a totalitarian state, all the power is centralized in the hands of one person who becomes the authoritarian leader or the dictator. A person who has all the power in the country and a person who no one can oppose and everyone is bound to abide by. Now, we also see that Nazism is an ultra nationalist or aggressive nationalist ideology. Now, aggressive or ultra nationalism is a love for your country which makes you prioritize the interest of your own country over the interest of the other. And in this particular case, even war is justified, where you or the person who is an ultra nationalist happens to justify war just so that their country can emerge to be the best among all other countries. Now, apart from ultra nationalism, Nazism also subscribes to the ideology of corporatism. Now, corporatism is an economic ideology which organizes society on the basis of groups of people with similar interests. This does not refer to a hobby club or some club regarding simple interests. Over here we mean interest of corporate or economic nature. Therefore, people having similar corporate interests like fishermen, lawyers, people who practice medicine, they come together into their own groups or interest groups, and that is the basis on which a corporate state is building the society on. Now, a corporate state or a collectivist state prefers to bring industries and businesses under state control. But unlike communism, a corporate state allows private ownership. Finally, Nazism is a racialist or a hyper-racialist ideology. Now, this particular ideology refers to the act of distinguishing on the basis of race or ethnicity. And this particular differentiation can even lead to one considering their own race above the others or feeling that their race is superior to the other, as we saw in the case of Nazism and the master race. If the previous discussion seemed to be familiar, it probably is because it is familiar to you. Because most of these particular tenets we have discussed while also analyzing fascism. Therefore, for your ease of understanding, Nazism can be best described as an ideology as the tenets of fascism with racialism included. So therefore, Nazism is fascism with the inclusion of the ideology of racialism or hyper-racialism. Now that we've understood the ideology that Nazism happens to be, now we would be focusing on the rise of Nazism in Germany and the contribution of this particular man who we all know by his mustache, Adolf Hitler. The man who rose to the power of Führer, leader of Germany, and would eventually lead Germany and the entirety of the world into the Second World War. Now, that will be a discussion of our upcoming lessons. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at DeltaStep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers or to get access to all our 5,000 plus amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million plus questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock tests. Get all your doubts resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it is rewarding too. So register for free now.